Good morning. I'm happy that I took this title for my presentation, Sharing Environmental Information in Action. As you said, it's much more important to show action than to talk about it, so I will get to my next slide. This is what it means at this moment, how in Europe our services are used. So you just see here a loop of what is happening during the day. This is how at this moment map services are used. I think it's in an 8-hour time frame, and you will see when it gets to 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, it will slowly die out. But that means on every day, more than 100 map requests are happening constantly on what is currently available, and this is just the beginning. So what we hope now that with Inspire, we will see an exponential increase not only of what is available at European level, these are services at European level, but as well what will become available from national and local service providers. So what I will do in my presentation is first very briefly to refresh mind what is exactly SAIS, what is SAIS about, and then focusing mainly on what we currently see as the challenges and what we have ahead. So what you will find on your agenda now the next year when it comes to the needs for environmental information from a content perspective, from an institutional cooperation perspective, as well on technology infrastructure. Like Ian said, we consider that as probably the least challenging. And then I will conclude then with some next steps on what we see coming up also on the policy agenda. SAIS, some of you heard about it, some of you can't find much about it, but if I would put it in simple words, SAIS is about modernizing how we currently deal with access and sharing of environmental information. And that is the main challenge. How can we improve that? There was a communication in 2008 from the Commission that was a good trigger to make sure that we have made progress also in a coordinated way across Europe, moving towards a distributed information system, principles exactly the same as Inspire. So what does it mean? Keep it at source, make sure that we have the good quality, make sure that we can address different geographical scales, introducing as well local languages. That will be the challenges of SAIS. And most important, if you put it in a time perspective, and it was already mentioned this morning, SAIS is something that gradually grew over the past 10, 15 years. What you can see here, if you see, you probably are very familiar with the Inspire process, where in 2007 the directive came into force. But we see two other European initiatives as crucial in the development of sharing and access to environmental information. And that is on the one hand the global monitoring for environment and security, where we will have a lot of improvements on infrastructure, I would say, and SAIS. SAIS, you will find the first document back from '98. So there was already the initiative, we should move towards a shared European environmental information system. We have been following that closely, because you see at the bottom of the line, this is the timeline of the existing of the European Environment Agency. We started in '94. We followed very closely what the policy agenda was. We had first the 5th Environmental Action Plan. The last 10 years where these 3 initiatives came alive was mainly the 6th Environmental Action Plan. And now we are preparing now for the 7th Environmental Action Plan. And I will focus most of my presentation as well as what comes next now. So what should Inspire, what should SAIS be ready for? The first element is that it will not happen only in the EU. So we have to look across borders. How we deal with the environment in Europe has more and more an impact on a global level. And vice versa as well. What is happening around the world has more and more impact on your local environment, on what is happening in Europe. So that's why we agreed together with the Commission services to roll out the SAIS activity in the pan-European region and beyond. So we deal as well with our neighborhood countries, North Africa, Eastern Europe, Russia, as well as also the global level. And we look specifically in these 3 components. So what do we have to look into data, in statistics? What does it mean when it comes to infrastructure? To what extent should we move to really a very rigid, coordinated, I would say, computer system? Should we not keep it very loose? And what does it mean from a governance perspective? So how we have to deal when it comes to agreements? Is it just a service level agreement, or should we go more to legislative instruments? So if we first look into the content, when we talk about the environment, it's not only the state of the environment. We have developed a set of indicators. We have at European level a core set of indicators, 37, where we look not only on what is currently happening with the environment, but as well what are the pressures on it, what is the impact, what are the driving forces, and what is the policy response. Now, more and more countries are taking on board as well the same indicators, that we can have transparent information from the local to the global level. So we believe that indicators will be the key tool that we will have to handle in a shared environmental information system. If you look what currently is on the policy agenda, these are the 4 main topics that we have been dealing with. You're probably familiar with climate change, nature and biodiversity, which is high on the agenda, and as well also for the next strategy to 2020, natural resources and waste, environment, health, and most of all as well quality of life. If you look now to Europe's 2020 strategy, we want to move what you probably read already several times in the press to what is called a green economy. We called it, I would say in the past, very often we were talking about sustainable development, bringing together environment in the context of social development, economic development. But very important is to look on what will be specifically the focus. Resource efficiency, and that's maybe a pity that Ian didn't talk about geology, because I think that will be one of the important elements that we have to bring now into an environmental context. So what I would suggest is to show you a short video. So if I can have, because I can't click, if you just click on the video.
Today's so-called development model is completely unsustainable. The way we are going at the moment is to use more and more materials and energy and resources and water and everything else.
We are destroying the world, and the world is sick.
There is no price on destroying nature.
The costs of what we do keep going up. At some point, you have to say, look, we've got to design our future in a way that this damage is minimized.
If we don't think sustainably, then we'll face huge costs.
We grow and grow and grow, and we increase the amount of resources and energy that we are dependent on.
The more fossil fuels we burn, the more greenhouse gases we emit.
Everybody talks about growth, but how can you have continued growth on a finite planet?
In an ideal society, there should be no waste.
So we will need to become much smarter and always look at resources from the perspective of how efficiently we can use, reuse and recycle them. We need to rethink the way we live and act on this planet.
So maybe it doesn't sound also positive. It looks a bit grim, but that's what reality is about. And that's what the challenges we have now ahead. It's a movie, it's a 90-minute movie you can download. It's a documentary about what are the current environmental issues that we have in front of us. It was presented last week in Rio, where I think, and I will briefly give you some feedback of what came out of the discussions we had, together with the European Commission, and the role that the European Commission plays, especially when it comes to the cooperation aspect. So how now Europe is increasing its role at the global level. And I think what we succeeded to show in Rio, that in Europe we are quite well organized. If you see now as well, if I take the example from our agency, we have already agreements set up with a number of European networks. We have our network with the countries, the EINet. So in that sense, I would say that compared to other continents, we have a very strong building block to respond to what is currently now the policy agenda. There is a Rio Declaration. What you probably read in the press is that not much came out of Rio. If there is one thing that came out of Rio, is that there is now a clear recognition that a priority needs to be sharing and access to environmental information. If you analyze the text, you will find 10 times the specific requirements to what is exactly needed on environmental data. It's 6 times referring to access of information and 6 times strengthening the policy science interface. What also has been added is that in the past it was mainly a topic about countries and the global level. Now as well they strengthen the role of European organizations such as well as of EEA. Of course, if you see here on the right side, if you read the text carefully, it's a lot of reaffirmation of what was discussed the last 10 years. But there are still a few commitments. There are 26 commitments in the text, and unfortunately only 2 points where there was a clear decision where we should take it further from here. What is very important is that the text is referring to knowledge sharing platform, and that's exactly where Inspire fits in. So Inspire is becoming now a key instrument that will be used from monitoring to final information provision to decision makers. So that's where we will have to focus in, especially on the next years. And what does it mean concretely in action is that the scope is that we move to what probably know as the Web 2.0, that information should be accessible online to everybody, involving the citizens, to make sure that we have a two-way communication between what has been provided in the past from official authorities, what is happening with the environment, as well as that now as well the citizen can be empowered with the necessary instruments to have exchange of information of his local environment as well. And there are many platforms. You probably are familiar with some of them. I just highlighted here a few that you currently find online available. What I would like to do is highlight one new platform that EEA launched a few years ago, Iron Earth. It is where we try to put into practice size. So where we try to apply the size principles, and it has been quite successful. Even it has been taken up now as well in the Rio Declaration. So in the Rio Declaration, you will find as well a reference to GEOS, reference to Iron Earth as good examples of the way forward. And what does this mean? It means very simply taking data which is available from different levels of authority, making sure that it is available to geolocation, to web services, exactly what Inspire will provide, and make it available to easily accessible applications on mobile devices, on everything what will come up in the next year when it comes to technology. We will have to deal there with a number of challenges when it comes to the use of citizen science, of crowdsourcing. We will as well look into social media, what will be the role of social media, as well as also near real-time data will be integrated more and more. We have been doing that over the last year by making it available, like here on these bookshelves, all our web map services which are Inspire compliant, to make sure that the user can find what is needed. The demand over the last 10 years has been significantly increasing. By using Inspire, we could see that at this moment we have 80 different services available. And most interesting, if you look to the investment that we have to do compared to 10 years ago, it's becoming a fraction of making this kind of tools available to the public compared to what we did in the early years 2000s. So there I think we made a lot of progress when it comes to deploying services like Inspire will regulate. Now what do we see as the next steps? So first of all, it's all about improving the quality of information and data. These are now priorities that also, together with the European Commission, we will make sure that it will be reflected in upcoming new communications or new legal instruments. A second priority that we will take high on the agenda is improving the data flows and information systems. At this moment, what we do at agency is we have a monitoring system which is based on what we call priority data flows, where since 2000 we have been monitoring how countries are willing to make available information on a number 10 to 12 key data sets. And what we can see here in the diagram below is that over the last 10 years we have a very significant improve, and we hope that now as well with size and with Inspire we will get close to 100% reporting, so that means that data and access to information available at the national and the regional level. Some of you might have been yesterday participating in a workshop where we are now preparing what is called a size cookbook. We want to make sure that we can support the capacity building in Europe and beyond. So by looking into the principles that you need to apply for size and giving you some guidance on to what extent your information system is compliant and where you can make improvements according to the 7 principles of size. And we do that, and we will now implement size along these 4 key streams of actions. First of all, and that's mainly the role that we will have to do together with member states and the European Commission, is to remove inconsistencies between the EU and data sharing policies. So, because as you probably know, there is already quite some legislation available where some streamlining needs to be done. We also have to make sure that we streamline the data and the supply side, the demand and the supply side. I would say that we have been strong on the demand side so far in Europe, but I think now a lot of focus will have to be put on supply, and where we hope as well that Inspire will there as well make a breakthrough when it comes to the environmental data. Developing the information and data infrastructures. So Inspire, as it was mentioned already, good progress is made, but we still have a way to go. As you know, 2019 is still a few years ahead, but we are confident that it will be a big success, as long as we make sure that it's fit for purpose. And that is what we put forward as the 4 key stream of actions, that we need fit for purpose data for improved environmental monitoring and assessment systems. I will not go into detail about the communication that was published now in March this year. It's about related to the better regulation. I think the next speaker, Johannes, will say more about it. But that's where we have a first step in the preparation of the 7th Environmental Action Plan, where now we put forward exactly what we will have to do together with the member states. What I think I would do to conclude is maybe focus on what we see from an agency perspective as our next step. We have had in 2015 a new comprehensive report of what is happening with the state and outlook of the environment in Europe, and also taking it in a global context. We set up in that context an initiative which is called SENSE. It's how to share European and national information making use of Inspire and SIZE. There is, after the plenary, parallel session that will be specifically dedicated to this initiative. We also are quite keen in the next years to look more and more deeper in the use of linked data. So that means on how we can better use semantics when it comes to all the assessments, all the reports that are available in the different countries at different level of authority, on how we can easily search and find information that is currently collected across Europe. And as I mentioned, capacity building, because we know that there is still quite a level of difference when it comes to not only understanding the technology, but also understanding on how we can move forward towards a cost-effective information system. And especially there, looking into strengthening how we can better link all these initiatives from GMES, where we have billions of investments, Inspire as well, where countries are making significant investments, as well as also on SIZE, on how we can streamline this process in the context not only of the EU digital agenda, how we can move to e-government, but as well as also to be ready to respond to all the emerging issues that we might face. One of them, as you probably know, is how to deal with chemicals in the environment. That probably will be one of the biggest challenges for the next decade and the next generations. And finally, I would say that EEA will play as well an important role in assessing what we call the policy added value of the implementation of Inspire. Because at the end, we want as well that Inspire in action. So that's what at the end we hope to achieve in the coming years. So thank you very much.